Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne, and I have a problem with nightmares. I have had nightmares that are extremely vivid and very dark ever since my very first memory up till last week. So I thought I might make something good out of a bad situation and make some horror illustrations inspired by my very worst nightmares. I hope you guys enjoy. First up was a reoccurring nightmare I had when I was around the age of 10. And I should just say before I get into this too much, obviously we're going to be talking about nightmares, so some of the stuff I'm going to talk about is going to be, well, all of it actually is going to be scary, and there's going to be some imagery of like blood and stuff, nothing too gory or graphic, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick heads up. So basically I had this nightmare maybe like 16 times or something when I was a kid. I don't know, it felt like a ton, maybe one of the most like reoccurring nightmares I've ever had. And basically the dream was that my parents were either having a party or something at the house, and they would invite over this person. Oftentimes she was like a woman, a very like thin woman with sort of stringy curly hair, and a very fancy like cocktail dress on. Sometimes she was a fancily dressed guy, but either way she was like usually my parents' age or a little bit older, and basically I had like a sense that she was a dangerous person, so I would try to tell my parents like not to invite her over to our house anymore, but they wouldn't listen. And basically in the dream every time my parents would end up just like going somewhere else and leaving me alone with this person, and then she would basically like find places in the house to corner me and do like horrible stuff, like putting needles under my fingernails. That was the thing that I remember the most, and it was so upsetting because not only was it like really scary and she was like stalking me around my childhood home, and I felt like there was nowhere I could hide, but also it was frustrating because in the dream I always tried to tell my like family or my parents or like adults that I thought I could trust, and like they would just ignore me. In some versions of the dreams, it seemed like I wasn't actually able to speak or my parents weren't understanding me, and in other ones they were laughing at me like they thought that I was making a joke or something, but either way, like I wasn't being understood, and it was really, really, really upsetting. In some versions of the dream, there would actually be multiple instances where the person would like corner me in the garage or in the dining room and like do some sort of torture on me, and then my parents would come back and I'd tell them what happened, and then they'd leave me alone with her again. And it was just like really, really scary. I just remember when I had to have been, like around 10, maybe 9, 10, 11, that sort of like range. I had this dream so often, it like made me not want to go to sleep because it was so scary. And every time I had it, there would be like a few things that would change, like the setting, or the type of like torture device or whatever, but it was always the same. It was always being pursued through my home, and then my family members not believing me. Very, very dark, very, very scary. I think I would give it an 8 out of 10 on the like traumatizing scale, partially because it was reoccurring and partially because it was so cinematic with this person stalking me around my home and always eventually catching up to me. Very high score. The next one was during college. I only had this dream once, but it really stuck with me because aesthetically it was really different than most of the other dreams I had. This one had more of a sci-fi vibe to it, which is really uncommon. Usually my dreams are more either super realistic or they have more of like a fairy tale vibe, whereas this one was definitely like science fiction-y. It would start with me living on my own in like kind of like a crappy apartment. I assume I started having dreams like that because I was living in the dorms for the first time, and like away from my family. So it would start with me like leaving my apartment and starting to walk down these strange like concrete stairs, and then two like basically like Men in Black looking people, like like very anonymous looking government officials in suits would show up, and they would just like chuck me into a car, and eventually I would end up in this bright white room, like this totally sterile room with nothing in it. And it was pretty small, and there was a window where they could watch me through the window. And basically, in the dream, for some reason, I was immortal, like there was no way to kill me. So essentially, the government or some sort of organized group had captured me to study me, and basically that studying ended up with them just like holding me hostage in there indefinitely and like ripping my arms and legs off. And this was really upsetting because this is the first dream where I swear I could actually like feel pain. Obviously not the level of pain that would make sense for being dismembered repeatedly, but there was actually some sort of sensation of like discomfort whenever they would like pop one of my limbs off. And I remember being really, really upset because I got the sense that this group was so immensely powerful that no one would even know to look for me. I would just disappear, and there was just absolutely no escape because I was completely immortal and they had no intention of ever letting me go. So it was like this really horrifying realization that like my eternity was going to be trapped in this tiny little room, basically having my whole life being dismembered over and over. It was really, really dramatic, and it wasn't gory either. That was the weird part. Like, it was painful and scary, but like there was no blood when they'd pull my limbs off. It would just like I would just pop apart like a doll, but it was still really horrifying, and it would take like a few minutes before my limb would come back, and I just remember feeling so like helpless and completely detached from my body, somewhat literally actually. So that was really upsetting on like an existential level as well. I just can't believe there was so much like cinematic nonsense in this dream. I also think it's really strange that in a dream where I'm literally immortal, it was one of the worst nightmares of my life, because usually nightmares are scary because you're going to die, but this one was scary because I couldn't die. Around the time I had this nightmare, I also discovered that I have night terrors as well, which is like basically like a type of nightmare where you start sleepwalking or usually like bolting upright and like screaming at the top of your lungs. So that was a pretty rough period. College was difficult. I had a lot of really horrible dreams and scared a lot of people who I was sleeping near. This next dream only happened about a week ago, and when I woke up, I was actually like, I felt sick because it scared me so badly. Basically, in the dream, I was younger. I don't know if I was in high school or college, but I was definitely going to school, and for some reason in this dream, I had an older brother. I do not have an older brother in real life, but basically, I was feeling really discouraged. I was not doing well in school, and my brother offered to meet me at this park to like cheer me up or something, and I went, and basically we met up, and the park was mostly empty. The only people around were really far away, and as he was walking up to me, I noticed like something was off about his demeanor, and he had his phone out, and as soon as he got close to me, he like put his hand out and pushed me over like as hard as he could, and the next thing I knew, he put both of his knees on my chest and was just basically like trying to kill me with his bare hands. Now obviously that was very scary, but even scarier was the fact that he was recording it. He was recording my face close up with his phone, and when I was trying, like, for some reason in the dream I was trying not to make a scene, like I was like embarrassed to be getting murdered. So I was trying to like talk him out of killing me, but as I was doing that, he started like picking up grass and dirt and like shoving it into my mouth so I couldn't make any sound, and like I just remember like I felt in the dream like I was dying, like I could feel myself fading out of existence. But luckily, a passerby heard the commotion and ran over and pushed my brother off of me, and like the paramedics came and like fixed up my face a little bit, and I was breathing again, so they ended up taking me and my brother back to our family. And so it was decided that the family could decide whether or not to press charges, since both the victim and the perpetrator were from the same family. So the next thing I knew, I was sitting on the couch with my parents in between me and my brother, and the really creepiest part of this dream was not the actual attack, but was sitting there with my family watching the footage, and I could actually see my own like face and myself like dying in the video, which was really, really disturbing to see. And the thing I remember the most was I just remember so distinctly the look in his eyes as I was like begging for my life was so blank. Like his eyes were perfectly black and completely flat, like there was nothing behind them, and that nothing I could say would sway him at all. He wasn't even annoyed that I was fighting back. He was just completely empty. So I knew that no matter what happened, like he wouldn't feel sorry and he would try to do it again, but my parents wanted to give him another chance. So I started walking down the hallway to my room, and I heard him get up and start walking behind me, and he got closer and closer, and I knew that this was the end. And right before he caught up with me, I woke up. So that was a few of my most memorable nightmares I've had in my life. Do you guys have nightmares often? I don't know how common it is to have them this frequently or for them to be so like dark. So I'd love to know if you're the type of person who has good dreams, bad dreams, like a mix, or if you have no dreams at all. And if you have any advice for how to prevent nightmares, I would love to hear it, because I have had this problem literally ever since my very first memory, which was of a super violent nightmare. So if you have any advice for me, I would love to hear it, and I hope you guys have sweet dreams tonight. Thank you to all of my patrons, including Bald-Headed Potato, Bella Story, Best Kaiju, Braggy, Calpumpong, Lion, Don't Eat Soap, Dr. Casket, Ilaria Louie, Eric G, Greer the Animator, Griffix, Hachiubi, Ice Cream Pal, Ivan Rodriguez, JJJ, Joseph Copel, Leblevleblem, Marina Costa, Mr. Dr. Pants, Nicole Ludwak, Nicolette Queen, Nora Cornelison, Ruined Wayne Crow, Some Mediocre Artists, the RC Moose, Throat Foam, XAM, and your boy ST.